Welcome to Our Future is Kind, a podcast exploring how we build the future we want to live in, one kind act at a time. I'm your host, Michael Neese, president of Our Future is Kind, and your companion in conversations about kindness, leadership, connection, and courage. Each week, I sit down with thoughtful leaders, creators, and bridge builders to explore what a healthier, more humane future could look like, and the choices it takes to build it. These are honest conversations about purpose, culture, curiosity, and what it really means to show up for one another at work, in our communities, and in everyday life. Along the way, we'll unearth practical ideas, small but meaningful acts, and questions worth sitting with, because building what's next is a choice. So let's dive in. Jenn Johnson is a podcast host, writer, and an expert in higher education, event management, talent acquisition, and recruiting. She is also a dear friend and somebody I can't wait for you to meet. So, Jenn Johnson, welcome to the program.
Oh my gosh, Michael G. Neese. I feel like we've been planning this forever, and it's good to see you again. It's good to see your smile. It's good to hear your voice. And so I'm excited that we were able to make this work and that I could be on your show.
Well, ever since I was on your show, gosh, that seems like 8,000 years ago at this point. Yeah, I've wanted to continue the conversation, so I'm excited to have my audience meet you. So I gave you an introduction, but I would love for you to tell everybody what makes you, you.
Oh my gosh. I have to say that I am the result of very kind, smart, well-planned people. I think I've just been lucky, really, that there's something about kind people that migrate towards me, and it's just been a joy and a privilege of my life to have the advantage of having these people in my life. And so I think that started with my grandmother and my father, who were the first two people in their families to have gone to college. And so they really instilled in me, like, education is the key to overcoming everything in the Black community. And the one thing that you could never have taken away from you is your education. So school. I think I was 10 when my grandmother took me to Harvard. College was always going to be a part of my future. I got to pick which college I went to, but college was going to be that. And having the social influences like the Huxtables, the Cosby Show, the show The Different World, the show Living Single, like having all of these very accomplished Black people gave me models for what my life would look like, except that your girl's real shy and awkward. And as much as I admired seeing these very accomplished people, I just didn't always know how I was going to get there. And so when I got to college, it was a culture shock for me. It was very strange to be away from the comforts of everybody that I knew. I had a boyfriend that I'd been with through high school, and, as teenage relationships do, we didn't work out. And so I almost dropped out of college, and I had somebody that worked in, higher education who was like, well, why don't you give it one more semester? See what you think. How about this? How about you join a club? How about you try this? How about you try that? And I was like, okay. And his name is Frank Shushak. And so he was the one that got me into activities. And so I joined a sorority and I had leadership roles, and it occurred to me like, I don't know why this man decided he was going to help this little Black girl living in Arizona. But, at some point it occurred to me like, this is his job. Like, he gets paid to do this. And so I said, I want to do what you do. I want to help students like me who may find themselves at a crossroads, and I want to be that kind voice that maybe makes a difference. And he's like, all right, you're going to have to go to get your master's degree and pursue a degree in student services. And so that's what I did. And after that, I worked in higher ed for 5 years, and that was my passion. I loved working with students, and I loved being that resource to students. And I loved the idea that college was that kind of, not petri dish, but it's a place where you get to experiment safely. It's a place where you get to try different majors, and you get to try different personalities, and you get to try to study abroad, and you get to experiment what your future will look like when the risk was low. You weren't going to lose a house or a family to try while you were trying new things. And so I love that. I thought I was going to be in college forever. And when I was working at the university I was at, they froze our salaries and merit raises because of budgets. And I was like, okay, well, as much as I love students, that love's not going to pay my mortgage. So I transitioned into a career doing, experience marketing with IBM. And that was a lot of event planning, logistics, and travel. And it was exciting. And I learned about STEM and what all of that was about. And I really enjoyed that piece, but I wasn't affecting anybody. I wasn't changing anybody's lives. I wasn't making an impact on anybody. IBM was a bajillion-dollar company, and I wasn't making a difference in this bajillion-dollar company. And so another tech company was hiring they were starting a recruiting for college students. They wanted somebody to manage the recruiting for interns and entry-level students. And I said, well, I've got some tech experience from working at IBM. Let me transfer to this and let me go back to students. And so that's where I ended up kind of working for a long time, for about 5 years. I transitioned into talent acquisition with a route through student services. And so my job was really, how do I get diverse students connected to STEM careers? And I think at that point is where I realized, the inequities that exist in the education system affect students, not only from junior high school and high school, but also through college. And I was seeing students where their universities had dollars pumped into universities by corporations. And so the students in their career services were getting the top of the line resources. And then some other students whose colleges didn't have that influx of cash, through no fault of their own, weren't getting the same opportunities. And so when it came to working with employers and, I want to hire this student because they have experience working with X, Y, and Z because it was available at their high school. Well, why should the student who doesn't have that in a high school that they didn't choose be disadvantaged? And so that's where I was like, I've got to be an advocate for these students in STEM. And that's where I met you in the position that I later transitioned to, where I was able to work directly with you. And you were so great about being intentional about, I want to hire students, diverse students, students of color to STEM. I want to build a pipeline of students so that they can do what I do. And I love that. And that was such an amazing experience. And you were super kind, and it was so fun to work with you because, there's something about coming to work every day where somebody is like, hi, I'm happy you're here. That really kind of sets the tone for the day. And so I kind of transferred that to the students that I talked to. I was like, well, I feel good when Michael's kind to me, so let me make sure that I'm kind to other people. And so I enjoyed the program that we were doing together and what we were building. Unfortunately, at the time, I lost both of my parents within a year of each other. My mother passed in March 21 and my dad passed in January 22. And I just needed a break.
Yeah.
As kind as you were, like when my father passed away, and you were so kind in meetings, and you were just like, before we get to business, you were like, are you okay? How are you today? And that makes a ton of difference when you think about the world of work. People have 1,000 things going on outside of work. And I think when we can get to the human of people, that makes them work harder. Like, I wanted to work harder for you because I know that you cared about me. And so there's something about that kindness in the workplace that really made a difference for me. So thank you. I have to give you your flowers on your route. So.
Yeah. Well, it was a mutual. It was an absolutely mutual thing, because every time you showed up on my screen, I knew it was going to be a great connection. It was going to be a meeting of minds and hearts, because we were trying to be in service to other people. And just to dig into some of what you've said, it feels like that is a big thread for you throughout all of what you've done. It's how do I give back to others? I mean, even while somebody was helping you, you're like, well, how can I do this for other people? And then you found ways of helping serve students in higher ed. And then eventually in more of a corporate space, you were helping people find those great jobs that were going to be great opportunities for them as well. So Yeah, what drives that? I mean, you've already kind of mentioned that you had great role models, but I've seen people with great role models who have not paid it forward, right? And you do. So where does that
Yeah.
come from? That sense of I need to give back, I need to be in service.
I think that people excel when they have the information. I don't think that people are inherently lazy. I don't think people are inherently not smart. I think people just need to know what they have access to. And I think once you can be that conduit to that, that really could change somebody's life. I think about the place where you and I worked, where I had a student, who she got hired. I loved her. Her manager loved her, and I offered her the salary, and she just like, okay, great, I'll take it. And I was like, um, how about you go back to your career services person at your campus, tell them
Right,
about the job, talk about your
right,
requirements, maybe do some research about what the salary at this level looks like, and then come back to me with your decision.
right.
Because we know, unfortunately, especially at the entry level, companies are going to lowball people. Companies are going to try to save money wherever they can. And that's not something that an entry level student would know, and that she was not prepared for. And so she came back to me and asked for another, I think she asked for another $10,000 over what we offered. And I told the manager, and he was like, yeah, sure. No problem. We have that in the budget. Great. Give it to her.
Right, right. But without your indirect coaching,
Right.
that student would never necessarily have recognized, oh, there's more for me to ask for, right?
Right. And that to me that's it. That's what I am here for, I think, is to be in service of people in ways that connect them to things that they may not know they have the opportunities to explore. And that feels good to me, and that feels kind to me, and that feels like what we should be doing anyway. It doesn't feel unique to me. It feels like what we should be doing as a society, that we should be supporting each other personally, professionally, in every way that we can as a community. And so if I can do that through work, then I love what I do.
So getting a win for somebody else feels like a win for you.
Yeah, I guess I think it feels selfish to say that, but it feels good to say that too. I had another student who, cause a lot of managers want to have students that have like a 3 point whatever GPA, and it's this arbitrary number, and it really doesn't mean anything. And so the student that I was working with had maybe like a 2.75. And so I told him to lie on his resume, because at the intern level, we really don't check. And so he was given an opportunity because he didn't necessarily tell the truth. And he had messaged me on LinkedIn maybe 2 years later and said, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I work for an international company now. I get to travel, and none of that would have happened without you. And so I hope I don't do it because of that outcome, but I hope that the work that I do changes somebody's life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's it. That's it. Because I had enough people do that for me, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it's lovely. I mean, I think it's wonderful I think it's okay to feel warm fuzzies for ourselves
Okay, good.
as we're helping other people, because it is a wonderful act, and it is a wonderful thing to kind of, at the end of the day, to say, I'm the kind of person who does these cool things for other people. I think that's fine. I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, good.
So, one of the things that this audience does not yet know about you, or at least not thoroughly, is that you pursue adventure. You pursue sort of global perspectives. Can you tell everybody a little bit about what you do right now?
Love to. Yes. So after I lost my parents, I wasn't really kind of attached to the United States. My brother's married and he has a kid. My sister's got her kids. So there was nobody that immediately needed me to stay in the States. And my husband, my second husband, has been like, I want to travel internationally. And I was like, all right, there's nothing tying me to the States. Let's go. And so we just decided, let's pursue our dreams. He was an electrician for 20 years and wanted to be a scuba dive instructor. I always kind of wanted to be a writer. And so this was our chance to pursue our passions. And part of me pursuing my passions was starting the podcast. And the podcast was born out of some nosiness, but some curiosity, but also some helping, where the goal of the podcast was to interview people like you who were pursuing their passions, that were like, I do this, but I'm passionate about this, so I'm going to follow this, and what that looks like, and to normalize it, because around the time I started, it was around the pandemic, when everybody's careers were a little in flux and people were kind of rethinking about what they wanted. And so I was lucky, and that people were kind enough. I reached out to people that I didn't know. I reached out to people I didn't know, like you, but one person I reached out to, I saw in a magazine on an airplane. He was the first Black liquor distiller in the United States. And I was reading an article on an airplane, and I was like, that sounds cool. And I reached out to him and said, would you do the podcast? And he responded. He didn't have a person. It was him. And so that gave me the courage to go, well, people kind of want to tell their stories, and people have amazing stories, and let me just ask. And so that's what the podcast was let me interview the first Black director of a zoo in the United States. Let me interview somebody that she started in biology, but realized she liked art. And so she is now a scientific illustrator. Like, people do amazing things with their careers, and I wanted to learn about them. And so I started a podcast for that. So that's what I do. So we travel, we podcast, we write, we do it all.
And so tell everybody the name of your podcast and why you settled on that name.
The name of the podcast is Wise and Wine Podcast, and I did not do any research to see how many podcasts that had similar names were already out there, so that was my bad. But I kind of imagined it would be kind of like Drunken History, where we would just have some alcohol and then talk about stuff really loosely. Like, it wouldn't be real stuffy. But the reality is that people like you who are busy don't have time to sit around and drink and talk about stuff. They're busy. And so a lot of times I was recording during people's business hours. So, there was less wine and more wise in these discussions about people's career paths.
Wise and Wine. And it was lovely being on the program. I've listened to so many episodes, I want to say with you and your brother doing some things in the early days, right?
Don't do that. That was a mistake.
But no, you were exploring the medium, and it was really fun. And I just love the insights that you bring. You're always authentic. I mean, that's one of the great things is I never get the sense that you're putting on airs, that you're trying to pretend to be something. You are you. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about our friendship, as well as hearing you out in the world, making a difference. One thing that we have to get to, because I just think it's so cool, tell me about scuba.
Scuba diving, yes. So my husband and I went on our first scuba diving trip in Nicaragua, and we did it because we were on a small island and we ran out of stuff to do. And the scuba dive shop was across from our hostel, and they said, hey, do you want to dive? And we're like, we're not doing anything else. And immediately fell in love with it. Diving is I want everybody in the world to scuba dive. It's calming. It's relaxing. You get to see the world from a very different perspective. I've diagnosed myself with ADD. And so for somebody like me that has a hard time focusing, like, scuba diving requires you to fully focus on what you're doing. And it is amazing. So we've been traveling since 2022, scuba diving all over the world. We've scuba dived in the Galapagos, in Colombia, Brazil, all over. I still want to dive in the Maldives. So we've got kind of dreams about where we want to be. I think through scuba diving, I've discovered that, and I actually knew this before. My dad made sure when I was 2 that I learned how to swim, because there's a cultural history of Black people not swimming, and drowning deaths in the Black community are really high because of the cultural and historical factors related to why we don't swim. And so if you think about swimming being a kind of important part of scuba diving. You realize that the scuba dive community, at least in my experience, was really small until I discovered the National Association of Black Scuba Divers and Black in Marine Science and realized, oh, it's not just me. Like there's a bunch of people out there that do what I do. And so now kind of unofficially, I have this passion about how do we bring diving to a larger community and how do we connect swimming and diving to a larger community. And so part of that we do, my husband and I have a YouTube page called Janice Adventures. And what I want to do through that is to really like, hey, here's a Black person that scuba dives, and here's a Black person that travels, and here's a Black person that swims, and to really kind of normalize that stuff. And so it's something that I'm doing unofficially. I'm not tied to anything, but I get to see the other organizations that are out there, like, I think it's Blacks in Aquatics. So there's so many different organizations out there, Outdoor Afro, that are really committed to this issue. And so unofficially being a part of that to me is amazing.
It's a wonderful thing that you are able to be a representative of success in several different areas that you think historically are not ones that a large community really needs to invest in. And so it's wonderful. I want to dig in because you travel all the time. You go to so many places. Can you tell me how many continents have you lived on? How many countries have you visited? Just any stats and figures that will just leave everybody with their jaws dropped.
Okay. Well, we're relatively new at this. We've only been traveling for 3 years, and my lovely, adorable husband is also a little type A, and so he's very organized about completing countries. So we started in South America. We hit 8 of the 12 countries in South America. Now we're in Asia. We've hit Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, and we're currently in Thailand. So the goal is to hit the rest of the continent here before we pop over to another one. Obviously, Great Barrier Reef in Australia is going to be a must-do since we're a lot closer here than we were in the States.
Sure.
But really just a combination of scuba diving and exploration. I also got my English as a foreign language certification. And so having the opportunity to interact with children in other cultures and to teach English is amazing. I realize that I don't like teenagers.
Okay. All right. There's a bit of challenge there for sure.
I don't like teenagers, but the younger kids and then, maybe like 16 and older, I'm good. But just to see other cultures be excited about seeing somebody that looks like me, especially, I don't know if there's just not a large population of travelers in Asia. There seems to be a large population in South America. So they weren't so like odd by me, but in Asia, particularly in some of the smaller countries like Laos, to see a Black person that speaks English and they're so excited to practice their English and to tell me what they know about American culture and to ask questions about rap music, which sometimes make me nervous, but it's cool to see how American culture filters to other countries and how the kids growing up are really excited about it. And for me, it's meaningful because I want them to have a meaningful experience with not only a Black person, a Black woman, but also an American. And to do that feels kind to spread that across the world.
Yeah. Well, I recall about a year and a half ago, I was in Ethiopia, and we were in a remote little village, and I was the only white guy anywhere around.
And you're blonde.
So, that's right. And I'm blonde. I got the blue eyes. And so I'm walking down the street and, I'm there with my buddy, who grew up in Ethiopia. And it was funny because the little boys just all mobbed me because they wanted to ask questions and kind of just see who I was. And so they told me the English words that they knew. And then they asked if they could have money so that they could go and buy pencils for school. And my buddy, as soon as they all left, he said, that's code for them going and buying candy. They don't care about pencils for school. But
either way,
it's fun having a bit of cultural mixing whenever you get the chance. So
Exactly. I love when little kids and sometimes adults run up to me and they go, Obama, because that's their connection to the United
that's
States.
the reference, right?
I love it. I love it. I'll take it. Call Obama all day long. So it's great.
That's a good reference. So, so with all of this traveling, with all of this chance to interact with different cultures, what are your thoughts on kindness across the world? Because, you know, this is our Future is Kind podcast. We are really very concerned with how do we build a kinder future and how do we get more people to connect and be kind? What have you observed? Just high level, what are the things you've seen in kindness, in casual cruelty, and just anything having to do with connection between humans?
Kindness, it's not exclusive to any one country or culture, and I don't think you have to try very hard to find it. One of my favorite stories is we were in Colombia and Medellin, and everybody thinks, oh, Medellin, Pablo Escobar, Medellin's so dangerous. And we were on a cable car to go to a mountain. We were in a cable car with a family. It was a mother, a father, and maybe the son was maybe 7. And the dad spoke English, and he started engaging with us. And is this your first time in Colombia? And we said yes. And he's like, oh, well, you have to come to our house for dinner, and we would love for you to taste these traditional Colombian dishes, and make sure you go to this place and this place. And he gave us, give me your WhatsApp number. I'm going to give you a list of places to go. And this is purely unprompted. We didn't ask him questions. All we said was hello. And he was just like, come to my house, come to my family. And, you know, because we were early in our travel experiences and we're nervous Americans, we didn't take him up on it. But another woman did the same thing. She was like, oh, come to my family's house. We would love for you to have dinner. And that to me is beyond kindness. That's people that are like, we want you to see our culture. We want you to not only experience the big stuff that people come here to experience, but we want you to see what it's like to be with us. And so I think about, or yesterday we had rented a electric vehicle thinking, oh, you know, EVs are a big deal here in Thailand. We're not going to have any problems charging it. The stations are everywhere. But we got to the station and we needed to download an app. But to download an app, we needed a Thai phone number, which we do not have.
Oh.
And so a taxi driver was watching us kind of fiddle with the machine. And he's like, you know what? I'll put it on my card. You guys just give me cash. Go eat lunch. Let me know when you're ready. And then it was great. It was absolutely great. And so that is unprompted. We didn't ask him. He just saw us fumbling and decided to help us. And so I think a lot of that happens culturally. And so when people are afraid to travel, or you hear about this place is dangerous or that place is dangerous, it's like, you know, as long as you're not acting like an idiot, you know, we don't travel with, you know, brand new iPhones and money falling out of our pockets and giant diamond rings. So as long as you're not giving people the opportunity, people are generally good and people are generally kind. And so I think having these experiences makes me think, you know, I hope when these cultures are in the United States, they experience the same thing, that if they're having trouble at a machine, somebody will help them. Or if they're having trouble understanding a sign, somebody will help them. And so I think about that anytime I'm around, or if I see a kid. We were at the beach and the mother was working and the daughter was just kind of playing on the beach. And I was like, well, do you want to learn some English? And she goes, yeah, sure. So me and her did some English lessons in the sand. It doesn't cost me anything. Her mom was working.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just really not difficult to be kind to people and to give to people. And none of this cost me anything. I was going to pay for gas anyway. I was already at the beach. We were already in this gondola ride. Like, none of this cost me anything to be kind to other people. And that to me is the biggest lesson from traveling, is just people are great. People are generally great.
Wonderful to hear. I do recall about 8 years ago, I read an article online about how a tow truck driver, I won't say in what state of the union, but responded to a call to come and help service somebody's car. noticed a bumper sticker on that person's car. I won't say what it said, but it was a political one. And the tow truck driver said, "I'm not helping you. You're not part of my political party. You can suck it," and just drove away. And I get worried about that because there's this sort of gatekeeping of our humanity. It's this idea of, well, I'm only going to help you if I think you're part of my club. And if you're not part of my club, clearly you're evil and terrible and I don't want to deal with you and you should just have the worst life. Gosh, have you encountered anything like that in any of your travels? Have you had somebody gatekeeping humanity and not treating you well?
Not me directly. No, I think, no, not me directly. I think, and if so, they're not people of the country I'm visiting. They're visitors from other places, that are idiots and people that I may not talk to anyway. But I would say the worst thing that happened to us was more of a misunderstanding than it was an outward, overt unkindness. We were in Colombia, and there's not really a solid process for renting an apartment. You just kind of go to a building, and if you ask the person at the front desk, is there a vacancy? And the front desk guy will go, "Oh yeah, 302 is open." So we went there to 302, and it was an older couple that didn't speak English, and they were ready to rent out their apartment. We weren't ready to move in for like a month, and we had given them a deposit, with broken Spanish and Google Translate. And as we were getting close to the move-in, just stuff kept going wrong. They said, "We need money for your internet. We need to install your internet. We need money for your bed. We need money for this. We need money for this." And we were staying at a co-living space at the time. And I had asked the owner, I said, "Hey, do you mind just translating for us? Like, something's being lost in translation here." And she said, "Yeah, sure," which was super kind of her. She didn't need to do that. And so, it turned out they had spent our deposit because they were having some financial problems, and we just decided to not move in with them. And so, could I see this as, oh, they're greedy and they stole our money? Or could I see this as there's two older people that they weren't prepared for this situation? We were okay. We found another place to stay. I would say in the 3 years we've been traveling, that's probably the worst thing that's happened to us. And it was more a misunderstanding than it was overtly unkind. I can't think of a single incident, because again, I think people generally want to be kind. I don't think people want to be terrible. And I think that people that experience terrible things internationally, it's from a place of somebody probably being desperate and having opportunities. So I think if you don't put yourself in a place where somebody can take advantage of an opportunity, then you shouldn't have any problems.
That's great advice. So for all of you who are out there listening or watching this episode, Jenn's giving you some great advice now. So definitely just be aware of what's going on, and share your kindness freely.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah. So what else do we need to talk about in terms of like what your business is or what you want the world to know?
Business is changing. I think, sadly, I'm work with American-based companies, and things are happening in America that make remote work a little bit difficult. So now, I'm freelancing. So the work of finding work is my new favorite saying. But that doesn't stop me from doing what I do. I still want to be in situations where I can help people. So right now, primarily, I was doing recruiting online, but a lot of that has changed with AI and things like that. But, I can still teach English online. I can still teach English in the school. And so that's kind of where my passion is anyway. So it worked out. So between that and building our social media, YouTube page, like I'm content. Like I make enough to, we're never going to be rich. We're never going to buy a giant house here, which is fine. I'm not trying to gentrify anybody's neighborhood anyway. We just want to experience cultures and experience life and see what we can see while we're both alive and physically able to do that.
Yeah. So let's dive into something that we love to do on this program, which is I'm going to take you on a hypothetical journey with me, Jenn. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay. So we're going to hop into a time machine. We're going to go forward 100 years. And it is now 100 years later. Everybody that we know at 100 to their age, probably not many of us are around, right? So it's our godkids, our nieces and nephews, our children. It's that next generation as the oldest people on the planet, maybe, right? So we're way in the future. And if I tell you that we did everything right on the way there and we step out, what are you looking for to see that I'm correct? What's the evidence you're looking for to see that we got it right?
And I'm going to be a bit of a thief here and steal a vision that you have and it's the idea of Star Trek. It's the idea of everybody from every place working together collectively. Like, I don't care what country you're from, that we can work together in unison, that we are working together towards a common goal. I would like to see that. I would like to see more of international ideas, international travel. I would love to see this funded. I wish as a kid that somebody could have paid for me to travel internationally when I wasn't old and needed air conditioning and a king bed. But to think about exposure to other cultures, because I think it really changes your fears and your perceptions. And so I think 100 years from now, I think if we can stop being afraid of people because we've worked with them and we've seen them and we've known them and we can name them, and instead of saying, that culture over there, I can say, oh, Michael, because you've interacted with Michael. So that's what I would like to see a future to look like, kind of your love of a Star Trek, to see people from everywhere working together towards a common goal.
Love that. And just to be clear for everybody listening in, I did not invent Star Trek. I'm just a big fan of it. I have always loved that vision of, it doesn't matter what the container of that being is that shows up. It's if they're showing up in good faith, if they're curious, if they're kind and compassionate. So kudos to you. I want to be in your future. It sounds awesome. But now here's the follow-up question, which may be a little bit harder. I said we did all the right things. What are those right things?
This is something I had when I worked in higher ed, something that I had my freshman classes do. I made my freshman classes go to a meeting of an organization that was different from their own identities. So they got to pick whatever that was. If you're straight and you want to go to an LGBTQ meeting, or if you're white and you want to go to a BSU meeting, like whatever, any culture that's different from your own, go to their meeting and then report back your findings from attending their meeting. And so I would like to see that, where people, instead of being afraid of other people that aren't like them, like spend some time with them and see what that looks like and report back. Because if you're like my freshman students, they were mainly bored because meetings aren't that entertaining. And a lot of times meetings are just taking care of business. And once you interact with people that aren't like you realize how much they aren't similar to you in a lot of ways.
Right. Yeah. No, I love that. Partly because I think bureaucracy does exist across a lot of cultures. So if you want to go see the bureaucracy in a different group than the one that you identify with, yeah, you can sit there and be bored by like, oh my gosh, do we really have to talk about? That's right. Trash collection in the neighborhood. Why are we talking about this? This is terrible. But it's important. So seeking out information about other groups, immersing yourself in other groups, makes them feel less other. Is that a fair summary of how to think about that?
I think it makes them feel less other. I think it also demystifies whatever you're afraid of or whatever you think is so wildly different from your own. I think at the end of the day, people just want the same things. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be happy. They want to be safe. They want to have opportunities to prosper. And I don't think that's unique to any one culture, gender, ethnicity, country. Like, I think people just want to live good, happy lives. And if you can be a part of that with other people, that's why else are we here? We're here. We're not here to propel ourselves. We're here to propel each other.
Love that. If as you have said, you've gone through a lot of changes in your life, and not every moment of your life has been filled with ecstasy and joy.
No.
Right? You've definitely had moments where there's been pain. You mentioned
Yes.
losing both parents within a year. And I can just imagine that it's painful trying to move from one country to another country, trying to overcome, translation issues, all of that kind of stuff. So what I'm very slowly getting to here is when things don't feel doable, when it feels like everything's overwhelming or terrible or sad, or you feel just deeply immersed in it and it's hard to get out, what do you reach for, Jenn? What is it that gets you inspired again so that you can stay kind?
It's people. I don't know. It's not a magic pill. It's not anything mysterious. It's really people. And I think wherever we go, trying to build community is awesome. And thank goodness, I don't know how people did it before the internet, but now there's so many ways for people to connect via communities abroad. There's in Colombia, we joined a group called Melanated, oh gosh. Melanated Medellin. And it was a group of just people of color who were expatriates living abroad that got together, and we did dumb stuff like go bowling, or we went to listen to a comedian, or it's nothing extraordinary, but it's just to every once in a while you want to have people that you commune with. And I had that, and I'm intentional about finding that wherever I go. In Costa Rica, my husband is white, and so he always jokes with me that whenever I see a black person that I wave, and I'm like, hi, black person, hi. But there's something about building community abroad that's important. And so when we were in Costa Rica, I met a woman who she had a traumatic brain injury. She was a vet, but she had moved to Costa Rica to start she does a remote yoga business for vets with traumatic brain injuries. What a niche you have, sis. Let's talk about that. So, I connected with her. And so on days like that, when I'm having a tough time, being intentional about building community wherever I'm at makes some of those times easier. But also, like, I have a community at home. And so I just talked to my best friend today for about 2 hours, and a good chunk of that was just nonsense. We were talking about reality TV, and some of that is just staying connected with things that are familiar. And so change is good, but familiarity is good too. So I think finding that balance between my life is totally different. I live in a house that's not mine. I sleep in a bed that's not mine, but I still have my bestie, a phone call away. So it's that balance between new and exciting and culturally developing and seeing new things, but also staying connected to the things that keep me grounded and the people that knew me when, because they can have a conversation with you that's a little different than some people that you meet that are new. The nice thing about travel is I've got a ton of time on my hands. And so podcasts are kind of my lifeline to what's happening back in the States. And so Michelle Obama and her brother's podcast is awesome. It reminds me of me and my brother, but also they're just the guests that they have on and the topics they discuss are just amazing. So that one fills me and swells me up so much. I think honestly, connections back home. I think we saw Sinners, the movie, in a movie theater here in Thailand, and we're shocked that the movie theater was packed. I don't know what they understood culturally about what was happening in the movie, but it was packed. We saw The Little Mermaid, the newest version, in Colombia. And so things that are loved by people that are not of my culture, in another country makes me happy and makes my heart full. And interacting with kids, honestly, kids are just they're so curious and they're so innocent and they've got questions, and it comes from a place of just pure, I want to learn about the world. And so I will stop whatever I'm doing to talk to a kid, in any country that we visit, because they're just, that's it. I think if I think about people who have impacted me throughout my life, I'm not so arrogant to think that the 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour a child spends with me is going to change the trajectory of their life. But I think if it gives them a foundation, what it's like to speak to somebody that doesn't look like them, that maybe that impacts how they move forward for the rest of their life. And I'm happy to be a part of that.
Of course, yeah. Well, it sounds like a great way of spreading ripples of kindness, even in the small ways, right? So, yeah. So tell me, and everybody else in the audience, how do we connect with you? How do we get in on what your adventures are? Tell us about your podcast. How do we connect?
The biggest way to find me is on Instagram and YouTube through jns.adventures. And that's kind of the housing of everything. That's the housing of the podcast. It's the housing of our adventures. It's the housing of our YouTubes, what we're doing. All of that good stuff is kind of housed in those two spots.
Great. And what is your next big grand adventure? I mean, you say you had just moved in a new country, so...
We're in Thailand for a little bit. My husband, again, is a scuba dive instructor, so hopefully he'll be working here for a little bit. I don't know what's next. Definitely Australia for sure, because we've got to dive Great Barrier Reef. And we won oddly, we sat through one of those timeshare things, and so we won I think a 2-night stay in the Maldives. So I think we'll head to the Maldives and go diving there because it's on somebody else's dime. But other than that, we're just gonna complete the rest of Asia while we're here.
That's wonderful. And are you coming back to the States anytime soon? Can we expect to see you here and visit with you?
It is such a long flight. It's an incredibly long flight, which is so funny when we meet people here. They're like, we don't get a lot of Americans here. It's like, yeah, that flight is so long. Not anytime soon. We were there in March. We will have been gone a year in March. So maybe March 2026 we'll come back. My brother has a daughter who's 2. So I don't want to miss all of her little milestones. So I just want to see her grow up. So probably March 2026 for a little visit.
All right. Well, if you're near enough, let me know. We'll try to get a coffee.
Yes. I heard you've got good food in your part of the world.
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. North Carolina, we got a lot of foodie places around here. So, oh, Jenn Johnson, I am so grateful to you. Thank you for spending an hour with me and sharing your light with the audience here.
The easiest hour I spent today. Thank you so much, Michael.
This episode's Kindness Challenge. Be someone's connector. Recommend a student, job seeker, or friend for a role or opportunity today, especially someone who may not know what's possible yet. Say yes to a curious question. If someone asks you about your work or life path, take time to answer kindly. Your story might shape their future. Lift someone up who might be overlooked. Jen reminded us that many people just need a nudge or a bit of info. Today, be the nudge. Be someone's connector. Want to stay inspired so you can stay kind? Follow Jen's global journey on Instagram and YouTube at jns.adventures. Listen to her Wise and Wine podcast, stories from people redefining purpose and joy in work and life. And remember, when life feels hard, remember Jen's lesson. Stay connected to community, old friends, new cultures, curious kids, and kindness will find you. You've been listening to Our Future is Kind podcast, where building what's next is a choice. Make your next choice a good one and help build the future we want to live in.